Alright. Been a while since I've done this little song and dance. Just give me a moment. I want to make sure stream is all good. That's someone streaming Overwatch. How do you see if you're live on this website again? Oh, alright, cool. Sounds good. Okay, let's just go and get out of the way. I'm here on Koth Shorelight, RC1, Release Candidate 1, from Zyth. Gonna do a quick map overview. Decided I'm probably gonna do this in a Twitch stream, export to YouTube, just because that's a simple button press, doesn't use my internet, and I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to this kind of stuff. In the future, I might try to do some more fancy polishing up, but just trying to get my thoughts down on paper, make sure that I do this instead of delaying it like a week in advance. We're going to get the big stuff out of the way first. My general impression of Shorelight is that it has a lot of trouble when it comes to making things smooth and kind of flow in a straight, nice way. And the other biggest problem is I personally see it as very much a hill point, where whichever team has the mid can kind of walk out all the entrances, and it's a really, really uphill fight trying to get back in. So I'm not really expecting the kind of back and forth that I really prefer to see in Koth. This feels a lot more like a steamroll kind of map. But okay, I'm going to go left to right, starting just from spawn here, and just talk through basically more nitpicky stuff. But if you want just like my general idea of what I think is wrong, just take the beginning part. You don't even have to worry about what the route stuff is, but just take that and run with it, because that's the biggest problem I see. I think it'd be too easy to lock people out of the point. Okay, now we get into the noodly stuff. First things first, I don't really like the spawn position. As a personal preference, I never like it when you have a spawn that is ever visible to the opposing team. And I know you have shutters here, but what I'm basically saying, and what I think is a huge problem, is if the spawn door ever gets opened by someone, if someone's spawning here and say like they crits or they do some snipers like sniping from back there shit, I know they probably wouldn't get this far, but I just think it's very dangerous and kind of awkward. That's why I much prefer kind of like, you know, if you can think of Barn Blitz attacking first spawn, you have like a side room, you spawn in the side room, and then you walk out into the general area. I just think it's a lot cleaner. The other thing, this spawn, like these two shutters is so awkward. I don't really know why it's like this. I feel like you should only have one shutter, and then you should have a window or something, because not being able to see outside spawn, either the spawn could have a window, but you can see if I actually wanted to know if someone is spawn camping me, I can't really tell this way. I would have to go out this way and look out this window, and I like this route being like an anti-spawn camp route. There's a little high ground up here, but it is kind of very much out of the way, and it doesn't do anything here. In terms of other spawn design, having this shutter here that is the exact same texture as the other one, but be non-functional, kind of just really silly, I think. I know it doesn't have an exit sign like the other one, but it's going to be just confusing. Like, you pick this door, you're being spawn camped, like, okay, I don't want to go that way, I'm really close to this side, there's a respawn cabinet here, I'm going to go this way. Very awkward. Another thing, I never like it when you can have a respawn cabinet in a sightline that you can also use to spam from. Again, this is your spawn, I don't expect to get spawn camped that much, but it's just a little bit of a design thing. That's the first thing I noticed. In terms of rollout, I always like having a smooth, clean rollout, and the first thing I notice walking out of the spawn door is you collide with these crates. And I'm guessing this is to block a sightline. Again, I'm not really expecting to get spawn camped, but it's just really awkward having to go around them. It feels like it's just in the way for not really much reason. Moving kind of more out here, I think this should 100% be sealed off. There's no reason to have areas like this where someone could literally just camp, and then you'd have a spy here, you could have a freaking heavy here and someone just rolls out and they get mowed down, or just a demo knight waiting here with his charge, just picks a player, goes and hides underneath the spawn again. No one's checking this, and it's kind of ridiculous just in terms of like, I have no idea how you deal with that. Just seal it off, no reason to. Also, I personally don't like that you can get fully submerged here. I would kind of like if it's only like knee height, but very, very nitpicky stuff. In terms of more rollout stuff, you walk out here forward. This prop kind of feels like, I'm guessing this is just for detail, but this is one of those, why is this here? And it's kind of in the way, just of your clean, nice rollout. This is detail. I would try to move it outside of the map, just not really a purpose of it. And I'm going to try to, just as a theme, go left to right. I might not stick to it, but it doesn't hurt. This is another moment where I really think detailing kind of hurts the map, where this should all be sealed off or clipped. I think you'd do this somewhere later with like chicken wire, pretty much like this, where I'd put chicken wire there. I'd also probably put chicken wire here, or at least make sure that this isn't as awkward, because what'll happen is someone's fighting, he's trying to leave, he gets caught in this corner, he thinks the map is shit because he gets caught in everything. And when you have double door design like this, double doors to me are, this is supposed to be a really hard choke to push. So seeing this here doesn't really make much sense to me in terms of it's not really doing anything. Maybe it's fine in terms of detail because it's so close to spawn and you don't expect anyone to be able to push this way. But double doors do mean something. Like if someone traps this, like say someone's hanging out here, right? He has his full health pack. I know there's a drop down, but he traps that door, and you can't clear this at all. This is like really hard to deal with, both of them, and then all the corners as well, because you can't clear all these sides as well. That's not like a clean kind of cut. Anyway, going into lobby here. Generally, I say the purpose of most lobbies is to unify your attacking routes. In Koth maps, generally your lobby just is a fast way of getting to your staging area. They don't have to be necessarily connected. It's pretty rare to have a full health pack. I can't really think of any Koth maps that actually do have a full health pack in their kind of like staging area lobby, and I don't even think this is a staging area. I'm guessing this is just to help you push out of your lobby, which is really weird to me because it makes me think like you don't want people to be able to forward hold, but you have other design aspects for that rather than just slapping health here. I think it's very weird. I'm going to keep moving left a little bit until we get to the forward open space, and then I'll go through all the routes. So if I keep going left here, this is a little bit what I mean when I say flow, because that term gets thrown around a lot. But if you just try to walk in a straight line, right? Look how many objects you like collide with. It's bump, bump, bump. I feel like I feel like I'm in pinball or some shit. If I do want to actually take this route, it's going to be an ugly Z, right? Left, right, left, and then look here. I want to go straight again. Instead, I have to go left, right, and then I'm going to keep going forward here just to make a point, right? And instead of being able to go straight here, I have to go left, right again. It's not really like a clean rotation. I have so many like zigzags in just my standard rollout. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So let me go back a little bit. So right here, to get up there, you have to do a little bit of an awkward jump. 1, 2, but it just dumps you into the same area. I'm guessing this high ground is to prevent spawn camping, so it's a little bit hard for a defending team, you know, the team owns the point, I call them defenders, to grab this pack. Overall, I don't really think it's like bad, but I also don't really consider it a real route. It just takes longer to get to the same area and is more awkward. So this route would basically be non-functional unless someone is super overextended here. I can't really think of any reason anyone would take this route. Besides, like, they go this way and they get stuffed. So very unusual, very awkward, I think. Your lobby isn't connected. You have a left lobby and a right lobby. This doorway is not really too functional. Like if you're rolling out this right side, you're probably not going to go left, right? Like look how awkward this would be. If I roll out there's this main door and I want to go left, I have to pretty much go backwards even, and out this door is kind of like stuffed. But pretty much going out this right door, you're isolated going right. You have another high ground rotation here. This one I think is a little bit better in terms of it comes out on high ground. It helps you make sure you have control of this choke, and the rotation time isn't that much worse than going out this way. But I still think it's just a little bit awkward having to like rub up against these corners in your rotation. It's still not very smooth. It's got that Z behavior I'm talking about. This is a weird design aspect to me because initially I was thinking, okay, this wall makes sense. It blocks the sight line so that this door is protected, right? But then you have another wall that blocks the sight line of the next door. It just kind of feels like Doorpalooza. I feel like you could just eliminate this wall and you'd have a much nicer kind of cleaner open lobby where you can gather and kind of see shit, and you also see there's a door there, because if you're looking here, it's actually quite blind. You only see the two. I don't have any lighting to draw my eyes to the right. It's just drawing at the center, and I'm not sure if this is offset or if that's coming from outside. That I never noticed that. That lighting aspect is a little bit funny. Either way, I would probably axe this wall. I think it'd be fine without it, and this wall already kind of sufficiently blocks your sight line. I'm not really too worried about peeking this way because this doesn't see directly into the spawn or anything if you are keeping crates like that. If you aren't keeping crates like that, I still don't really think it's a huge problem, because if anything, the longer sightline to your spawn, when you have more players, when you have a player advantage, more players looking at a position puts more pressure on it. So it'd make it very hard for a defender to push up this way. I wouldn't really expect them to ever be able to hold the fort here. And even if they did, as mentioned, you have this rotation route here. Although I personally like whole connected lobbies rather than split lobbies. Okay. I think I went over everything there. Let's try to go out into the next area. So this is what I would call the staging area, and I throw that term around a lot. What it basically just means is the pre-push area. So, you know, my team is on Koth, we wipe, they own the point now, and we need to mass up for a push, right? So if you're a pub Koth player, a lot of times what you're going to do is you're just going to run in and die on cooldown. But if you're trying to like play even mildly seriously, what you want to do is you want to wait for your team, right? Where do you wait for your team? In the staging area. This is where you mass up, you build up, and then you kind of see what's going on, and it unites your routes just like a lobby, but it's an area that's comfortable enough to kind of like walk around in and rotate between the routes and protected enough that if they try to push into you in your staging area, you can collapse on them quite easily. So it is downhill, which probably isn't ideal for a staging area, but it's not that bad. But the big problem is there's no space. There's just no. If I'm like a heavy medic engineer, right, and I want to actually like set up for a push, I probably set up on this platform, right? But everyone else, like, where can they actually stand? I feel like this pit, right, is the main culprit, where this takes up so much real estate, but you don't really want to stand here. And I'm going to show you Z behavior again, right? So if I want to rotate from here to up to that door, I want to go right, left, right, and then I wouldn't go out that way, so left again. It's just like Z, 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 Z. So what I would probably do is I'd extend this platform all the way out to the wall. Make this bridge wider if you don't want to do that, just all the way out here. There's no reason not to, so that's at least comfortable to play around. And then I mentioned you need to unify your routes. Like, look at that left route. I don't want to drop onto low ground to go onto high ground. What this spot means is if I have a harasser here, right, like a defender pops up here, he has a health pack, right? He pops up here, and he can spam people on the bridge. What is their only option to approach them, right? They go up this tiny ramp. And then once you get up that tiny ramp, he has a health pack, he has a tiny door, right? And then let's say he keeps backing out, he has another tiny door, and then he has another door. It's just, you can't get to him this way, right? This is very, very awkward. So it's just from a like, it's easy to defend, hard to attack perspective. This is kind of like a culprit of what I'd call, it's a microcosm of the kind of larger design that I think is not very good for Koth. So even if you do push this way and you catch this guy blind, the fact that he has a pack and he has like 12 doorways to work off is a little bit rough. And same thing here for these rotation routes. I think being forced to defend yourself on the low ground is really annoying. So if anyone peeks out there, I don't even have an exit route. Like, I'm rubbing my back against the wall. There's no like leaving or retreating to regroup with players. And that's a bigger aspect of your mid, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So talked a little bit about the left route. I kind of want to talk about the main area route now. So as I mentioned, I think this is kind of like, it looks like where you mainly want people to set up, and they go up here, and this is very nice in terms of you can see what's going on in the point. I'm guessing that's to help kind of make a push happen, but all the routes are so committal that it makes it really difficult to ever retreat and really difficult to ever kind of like play positioning properly. So going out the drop down is obviously committal. I assume I don't have to talk about that. This is also a drop down, which was so surprising to me, which means you have 2 drop downs into the mid, right? Which means you literally do not have the capacity to retreat after you drop down. It's just you're committed. You're committed into the mid, and there's no real way to rotate back to save this pack, right? So it's very interesting design. I'm guessing that's to prevent attackers from aggressing, but it also kind of works 2 ways, and it makes it hard for your team to really regroup just as a conglomerate, because people are just going to die instead of regrouping or retreating, which is ugly, I think. A little bit on this note here, I said I'd go left to right, I didn't do this. There's this low ground route here. I'm guessing you added this prop to like block sightlines, but I don't really see what sightline you're blocking. It feels personally just kind of in the way to me, like this, like kind of like this in the way, because that sightline is still there, and being right versus left doesn't change anything. So I feel like your hill sightline is like perfect here. Like, this is kind of what you want. The hill blocks the sightline. You have the high ground sightline, but you're rather quite visible. If you could see through the prop and see that guy, maybe when you're peeking his corner, and be like, okay, there's a sniper there. I don't want to challenge him. That's fine, but you put a giant prop here, so you can't. So I don't know. It just doesn't really make sense from a design perspective to me. But anyway, in terms of dropping out this way, I feel like this is probably the primary way you have to push, just because the holding ground over it isn't that good, where they can't see you because it's a one-way window. If there's a person on top of this shed, he can exist, and there's a sharp corner here, but at least it's not as bad as this, because this is really desperate low ground versus mild low ground. And there's a chance maybe that you could have players supporting you from the left here, but as I mentioned, I think this is a pretty good defender side to stuff and be annoying on, especially because you block sightlines like this. So anyone fighting, so anyone who drops down there has to fight this person, right, on any of this ground, and they have to fight that person. So you kind of have this crossfire going on where you have 2 routes looking in and 1 route out, because both the routes, the lower and this one, combine out this way. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on this and make it really hard to push out, contributing to the same thing I was talking about before, where it's really hard to push out. All right, let's go over the right side. As I mentioned, this is a drop down. It's pretty committal. Most of the time, I can't really see a reason why you'd push this way. This would pretty much be you want to commit up this ramp, but if anyone sentient is watching this, it's low ground, you're going to get stuffed, you barely have any room to kite. Like, look how much space you have here. This is the easiest splash of soldier's life or anything like that. So very difficult, I think, to push out here. You could harass people on the beach, but I'm not really sure why anyone would be standing there. This route, I really, really like this detail with the umbrellas. I think this is kind of elegant, nice way of cutting off the sightline. I do think like what it functionally serves as, this kind of like platforming puzzle. I know I'm scout, but this platforming puzzle to get up is neat. But again, this is like a really annoying retreat route. It feels like it'd mainly be used by attackers just to harass even further into lobby. Just makes it harder to get that real staging because now you're fighting a player here, right? And he's like spamming you indoors. And you also have to deal with players probably hopping on and off this platform or spamming you from back here. So again, same concept, two routes looking in and kind of like one door. This main door is what they can see, right? So you're out here, you're getting spammed from both sides. Very, very difficult to fight. The only complaint I have with these umbrellas is that I think it's very awkward to fight point with this umbrella right here. Like, I understand functionally it's there to complete the platforming puzzle, but if I'm like a demo man or something and I'm like, okay, I know they're standing on that platform, I want to clear it, it's like a prop just like smacking my face and I have to rotate really far out to actually do anything. So yeah, just a little bit awkward. I'm going to break the formula a little bit and go a little bit forward onto, we'll talk about the point from right to left. I know I said left to right, but I just want to talk about this. I feel like this wide beach flank, I want to call it a flank, but it's such a huge flank, and that doesn't really get you anything. So the medium health pack is here, yes, granted. But to rotate up to the point, you have to use this tiny staircase, because this is way too awkward. This is way too many jumps for even potentially being in combat, especially considering the fact that you probably were exposed in the cross. Like, it's very hard to stealthily walk on the beach, I think. And then just to make it slightly worse, you could have someone sniping or shit all the way back here, right? And look at this sightline. I can see lower, I can see that same door I was talking about, right? And you cannot fight this guy. He's so far back. I know you're just saying like spy or something, it's a pub. But the point is when you have to deal with this many factors, it makes it a very difficult area to push or do anything with. So anyway, this is way too awkward to rotate up to the point. I actually think it'd be a pretty good route if this was just like a hill, like pretty much the same thing. I don't want to have to do 3 prop jumps to get on top of the area to even start fighting the point. I think this area is a little degenerate. I was trying to think more about what this is for. I imagine it might be like a teleporter or something, but otherwise it just doesn't serve a purpose. It's so out of the way, I'm pretty surprised you didn't decide to put a health pack there instead. I guess you thought it was too close to point, but it being a small ammo is pretty funny, especially considering the area. So that's a small ammo, keep that in mind, right? This area that's like a center of the map. And then this is a full ammo right here, which is like in this corner of the map, which I was pretty surprised with. I really thought this would be a medium or even better as a small. So just a small note. In terms of the actual point design itself, I think it's pretty nice. You have this area here, which is kind of like, again, a pre-staging area, except this is much closer to the point. This is basically both teams are actually in on the mid, so neither team is locked out. They can kind of set up here. I would probably lean to the left rather than the flank, so you have a nice setup here. You have players rotating behind this shed for cover, and then they kind of poke and pressure cross point continuously. The one complaint I do have is I actually think this route is pretty bad. It removes the point of having this kind of like straightforward fight, and it also makes the ground around the point that much more awkward to fight. You're going to have like head peeking shenanigans here, and if you're doing stuff like trying to jump on this shed, pressure, and then drop off, you drop off into this pit instead of like this kind of like flat, nice ground, I think. So personally, I would probably seal that off and then be okay with this area resulting in kind of like this low ground flank. The prop jump might be okay, but I haven't really put too much thought into that. I just felt like this staircase was a little bit awkward. Moving further left, again, this is just the kind of stuff that makes it very awkward to leave, because I think this is the only exit route on the left. If you're not going out there, you're going out there, and exit out right is low ground. So the only real exit ground that leads to high ground is this guy, which you can see kind of comes out and in. So in terms of like retreating to this, it's very easy to just back up and get caught in these corners. I would just clip it. You can be kind of liberal with it, I think. It's just nicer to have it functional rather than pretty is what I'd probably say. So people getting caught on this will just be annoyed. I don't think anyone will be like, wow, it's really neat that he didn't clip it or anything, you know? So coming out here on the left, you come out onto high ground. No real comment about this. I think it's okay. This is a approach route to the point if it's not being watched, but as I mentioned before, I think the problem is if a player is paying attention, it's so easy to stuff all these routes that you can never really push here as a significant combo. The one benefit to pushing this far left, I guess, is that those players on that platform would have a harder time pressuring you because of how much cover there is. But yeah, in terms of actual mid, I think it's probably my favorite little aspect of the map. I think it's well designed in terms of both you have little nice mini high grounds, you have nice cover to rotate behind that. I can see a back and forth happening if both players get out onto this platform. But as mentioned, I think the primary problem is you're going to have a defending team here. I'll just put a heavy there. And you're going to have a defending player there. They're going to pinch this side. You're going to have defending player here, and maybe even back here. they're going to pinch that side. And this hole, to me, basically seems unbreakable. It's really difficult to deal with. And to make it a little bit worse, you're kind of like lobby routing. I could totally see people constantly harassing and forcing people to rotate because this isn't really high ground. So if there's anyone down here, they don't really have an advantage in a fight here. If anything, this guy's the advantage because he has the pack, so he can harass really heavily. I know there's routes to that they can get flanked from, but it's the main objective of a flanker, in my opinion, is to basically cause chaos, cause more harm, and take more brain power than it takes to control them. And that's kind of like a net positive for their team. So if you enable flankers, that's kind of what you get. I hear a lot of people say that. I wanted to enable flankers. Just keep in mind what that means is making it more difficult for a team to like properly stage and make a push, where you'll have players chasing people behind, and those players will have an easy time living behind because you've given them like an absurd amount of packs or anything. So yeah, the main suggestions I would have for the map is adjusting your staging area, making it kind of like easier to cleanly push, where you have nice high ground over kind of like the routes, and there's not as many routes looking into key doorways like this, right? Because this makes it very difficult to push. And the other advice I kind of have is trying to clean up the flow of your map, particularly with routes like this, where this isn't really a sightline you're blocking, and there's no reason for this to come out this way, and there's no reason for this staircase to come out this way. Like maybe you think it's aesthetic, but it becomes really annoying. In terms of like detail stuff, you should really go through and make sure you seal off stuff like this, because if a soldier shoots his rocket trying to splash this stair and it just goes through it, they're going to be annoyed and they're going to blame your map, and they have a right to do that, I think, in terms of like if you don't do the rigor in clipping stuff off, people complaining about the rockets going through stuff is like par for the course. Like it's just a little unprofessional, especially for RC candidate. I think that's the thing you need to be really careful about, the kind of like polish you have on your map. Let me delete that guy. So yeah, that's my general overview of the map. Hopefully this didn't take too long. Hopefully it's easy to read through. I hope it helps. I'm gonna send this to Shunik as well. I'm not sure he's gonna watch it, but my general recommendation would be I'm not a huge fan of this map. I don't think it would play well in a casual setting, purely because I think it would be too easy to hold the point. Okay,